Hello and welcome everyone. Today's presentation is on how to ventilate a patient with COVID-19 ARDS. So recently published Surviving Sepsis Campaign guidelines tell us that we should ventilate this patient as normal ARDS we find regularly in our ICUs. But Professor Gattinoni and his colleagues have a completely different take on this disease process. So, what they believe is that the presentation of the patient to the hospital depends on three factors. First is the severity of the infection, the host response, physiological reserve, and the comorbidities. Second is the ventilatory response of the patient to hypoxemia. And the last is the time elapsed between the onset of the disease and the observation in the hospital. Based on this, they divide the patient into two types. The first is the L type, the second is the H type. So let's see what is the L type. It is a disease which is characterized by low elastance in the lung. So the lung here has a normal compliance indicating that the amount of gas in the lung is nearly normal. Apart from that, they have low ventilation to perfusion ratio, low lung weight. Only ground glass densities are present in the CT scans, primarily in the subpleural region and along the lung fissures. Consequently, the lung weight is only moderately increased. Last but not the least is that the lung has low recruitability. The amount of non-aerated tissue is very low, so the amount that can be recruited is also very low. So as we can see, the lung is very normal. If the lung is so good, why do these patients develop hypoxia? So let's see what happens. So the virus enters the human's respiratory system, then it causes an infection in the subpleural region. So the subpleural interstitial edema or ground glassing is seen. This occurs mainly at interfaces between the lung structures with different elastic properties. So along the pleural space or along the fissures, the places where the stress and strain are concentrated. But again, this doesn't really explain why do the patients have hypoxemia. So let's see why they do develop hypoxemia. The hypoxemia is because of altered perfusion, which results in a VQ mismatch. So the perfusion to the ventilated lung is not proper, resulting in the hypoxemia. So the two reasons that would lead to a decreased perfusion are vasoplagia. This could be due to the viral sepsis or the inflammatory response. The other is the presence of microthrombus in the pulmonary circulation, so resulting in reduced delivery of the blood to the ventilated alveoli. So why are the patients not in distress if they are actually hypoxemic? There are two possible explanations for this. The first is, as the tidal volume is adequate and as the patient inhales the volume he expects to inhale, it results in no distress because they don't feel that they are breathing less. The other is the neuromodulatory effect of the SARS-CoV virus, which it has on the respiratory centers in the brain, which makes the brain feel that it is not having any respiratory distress. So how does this disease process in the lungs evolve? The first and the most important thing is the severity of the viral infection and the body's immune response to it. If the body's immune response to the infection isn't adequate, the disease goes on to be very severe. But apart from this, another important thing can happen. That is the depth of the negative intrathoracic pressures associated with increased tidal volumes in spontaneous breathing. So what happens in these patients is what is called patient self-inflicted lung injury. The concept is a negative pressure in the pleural space increases with increasing dyspnea. This increases the transpulmonary pressure quite significantly. At times, this pressure can go more than 30 centimeters of water quite easily. This, added with the increased capillary permeability, increases the lung edema. So, resulting in further accumulation of the inflammatory material in the alveolus and converting the disease process to what is called the H phenotype. So what happens in this is there is high elastance. That is, the decrease in the gas volume due to increased edema accounts for the increased lung elastance or decreased compliance. There is high right to left shunt. As the lungs become more and more consolidated, there is a perfusion in non-ventilated areas, resulting in a right to left shunt. Then there is high lung weight. As there is edema, the lung weight increases. Last but not the least is high lung recruitability. As most of the areas are now collapsed, there is a chance that they can be recruited during ventilation. So let's see how these two types look in a CT scan. This is the CT of the patient with the L type of disease. As you can see, the PF ratio is 95. That is almost severe ARDS. But if you look at the lung, it doesn't look that bad. You can only see some ground glassing in the stress and strain areas. So this is the CT scan of the same patient taken 7 days after NIV support. So you can see that the PF ratio is more or less same, but the lung picture is completely different. Here you see lot of consolidation, especially in the dependent regions. This looks more like an ARDS proper. So let's see what happens when we put these patients in non-invasive ventilation. So let's see. First, this is a normal breath. Here you see the alveolar pressure is 0 and the pleural pressure is -5. So the transpulmonary pressure is +5. So say for example, we add NIV to a patient. What happens in this case is, say the patient is not having any distress and is very much synchronized with the NIV breath, then it is all well and good. As you can see, the alveolar pressure is 15, the pleural pressure is +5. So if you subtract and get the transpulmonary pressure, it is +10, which is not very bad. But what happens is, if the patient gets breathless in a NIV support, so the alveolar pressure remains 15, which you are giving from the NIV, but the intrapleural pressure, because of the dyspnea and the spontaneous breath that the patient is trying to take, is -25. This results in very high transpulmonary pressures, which may even cross 30. So this can result in patient associated spontaneous lung injury. So how do we treat these two cases? Clearly, these are very separate disease process and we cannot treat both of them equally. So the first step to reverse hypoxemia is through an increase in FiO2, to which the type L patient respond very well. So they just respond very well to simple oxygen therapy. If you increase the FiO2, they become very comfortable and they tolerate it very well. So the first step is giving oxygen if the patient is not very breathless. So in L-type patient with dyspnea, you can try NIVN or HFNO or any form of non-invasive positive pressure ventilation, provided the patient isn't dyspneic. This we must keep in mind. If the patient is dyspneic, mind you, you should go for intubation. If the patient is having low oxygen but not dyspneic, then you try these modalities. At this stage, the measurement of the inspiratory esophageal pressure swings is very crucial, which is done primarily by an esophageal manometer. But say if you don't have an esophageal manometer, try to follow the swings in the central venous pressure catheter. High peeps may negate the swings that you will find in the CVP and can be beneficial, but mind you, these high positive and expiratory pressure, especially in patients with a very normal lung compliance, can affect your hemodynamics. So keep that in mind. Last but not the least, both these modalities have very high failure rates. So keep that in mind, and mind you that this process is going to take maybe some weeks to heal. So maybe you should go for an intubation if you find any reason that the patient is not tolerating. The magnitude of the inspiratory pleural pressure swings is very important. If it gets above 15, you should plan to intubate the patient. Once intubated, if hypercapnic, you can go for higher tidal volumes in this patient because they have very good compliance and they do tolerate really much more than a patient who is in the H type. The H type patient should be treated as severe ARDS and be treated with high PEEPs. So these patients should be treated as you treat any normal case of ARDS with prone positioning and extracorporeal support if required. So to summarize, the L and the H type are best identified by a CT scan. If CT is not available, use respiratory system elastance and recruitability, or you can try the role of bedside lung ultrasound in evaluating H and L type. Mind you, these are clearly two separate disease process with different pathophysiology. And understanding the correct pathophysiology is crucial to establishing the basis of an appropriate therapy. Thank you for your patience and check our website for further information.